1045 The Team. We're joined by our UFC expert, one half of the Phone Booth Fight podcast with Frank Murr. It is Richard Hunter, at Richard Hunter. Richard, this is the fourth of the last 8 fights for Conor McGregor where his opponent has backed out. What is going on with this?
Well, I'd love to say that this type of thing never happens, but unfortunately in the rough and tumble world of the UFC, where a lot of guys train as hard as they fight in the octagon, injuries do happen. What happened in this particular case was the main event was set for UFC 196 on March 5th here in Las Vegas. It was the reigning UFC featherweight champion, Conor McGregor, moving up from 145 pounds to challenge Rafael dos Anjos for his 155-pound lightweight title belt. He was going to attempt to become the first UFC fighter to hold 2 championship belts in 2 different weight divisions simultaneously. Rafael dos Anjos, within the last week or so, broke his foot. It was announced yesterday that he would have to pull out of the fight. So with about 11 days to go until fight night, the UFC had to find a replacement opponent for Conor McGregor. So they started looking at lightweight contenders. The names Nate Diaz came to mind, and also Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Now, the issue with replacing Dos Anjos with these guys is that would they be able to make the 155-pound limit in 11 days? Because, as you know, a lot of fighters walk around a little bit heavier than they actually are when they step on the scale.
Right.
And in Cowboy Cerrone's case, normally it would be no problem for him because he's always in shape. But he just fought this past weekend at 170 pounds for the first time. So at welterweight, so he's sitting at about 174 pounds, so that was going to be questionable as to whether or not he could make it. Nate Diaz ended up taking the fight, but Conor McGregor had to agree to fight him at 170 pounds. That tells me Nate Diaz wasn't sure he could hit the 155-pound limit. So what we end up having here is Conor McGregor moving up not 1 weight class, but 2 weight classes. Not 10 pounds, but 25 pounds to take on Nate Diaz in what I think is really going to be a very exciting fight on March 5th.
Now, at Richard Hunter, you should always follow him on Twitter. He's got all your UFC knowledge. The word is Dana White has said that Frankie Edgar and Jose Aldo have both said no to this fight. Why would they both say no?
Yeah, so what happened there was Frankie Edgar, who is down at 145 pounds, back down at the featherweight division where Conor McGregor holds the title, has been chomping at the bit forever to get a fight with McGregor. The problem is he's got a groin injury, just terrible timing for him. Frankie Edgar is one of the most game guys in the entire UFC, and I can guarantee if it was any way for him to take this fight, he would have. So apparently just bad timing for him. Jose Aldo's coach admittedly said, hey, Aldo's he's a bit out of shape. And that's a knock on Aldo because in the UFC, you've got to always stay ready. You never know when one of these types of opportunities is going to happen. And Aldo is just a few months removed from Conor McGregor knocking him out cold within the span of about 90 seconds and taking his featherweight title. So that is a very tough set of circumstances for Jose Aldo because at this point, he's struggling just to stay on Conor McGregor's radar.
Richard Hunter joining us right here on 1045 The Team. The big story, of course, Conor McGregor now fighting Nate Diaz. Richard, what would it mean to the UFC if somehow Conor McGregor lost this fight?
Well, it's limited risk, to be honest with you, because he is moving up 25 pounds. Let's say he does lose to Nate Diaz. First of all, Nate Diaz is a very tough fighter. He has 10 losses on his record, but 8 of those are decisions. He's only been submitted one time, that was about 10 years ago, and he's only been knocked out once, and that was about 3 years ago. So he is a very tough, gritty fighter. What would happen, let's say McGregor did lose, I think a lot of people would look at it and say, okay, well, you know what, Conor McGregor is naturally a lighter fighter than that. He tried to move up too far and fought above his weight class, and it was worth a shot, but now it's time for him to move back down at least to lightweight. I think the rewards far outweigh the risk, because here's the thing. If Conor McGregor defeats Nate Diaz on March 5th at UFC 196, I fully expect him to call out the UFC welterweight champion, Robbie Lawler, and challenge him to a welterweight title fight at UFC 200 in July, which is going to be the biggest event that the UFC has ever put on, and I think that's what the UFC is banking on.
Wow. All right. So big man, big fight. Conor McGregor, everything's going crazy with him. Richard Hunter getting us all prepared for this. Richard, I gotta ask you about the ugly side of UFC as well. Bellator 149. What kind of a kick in the pants was that to Bellator to have your two main events end the way they did?
Well, that was bad on several different levels. First of all, I'll tell you, I don't necessarily have a problem with two in-shape guys that are legends like Royce Gracie and Ken Shamrock fighting. It wasn't the most exciting fight, but I don't think either one of them embarrassed themselves. They both came in shape. I can tell you firsthand, I mean, I trained a seminar with Royce Gracie about a year ago, and I hope I'm in that kind of shape when I'm his age. So, that one, if you're going to do a Legends fight, kind of like when you sit down on Sunday afternoon and watch the PGA Seniors Tour or something for a moment, I'm not so opposed to that one. But the co-main event, Kimbo Slice and Dada 5000, a.k.a. DeFear Harris, that right there was an out-and-out embarrassment. And it was an embarrassment because the guys were completely out of shape. First of all, you're talking about a couple of street fighters who have no ground skills whatsoever. We've known that about Kimbo Slice for a number of years, but he is a fan favorite, and he's a YouTube sensation, and people like to watch him fight. DeFear Harris, who, by the way, went into cardiac arrest after the fight and by a lot of accounts nearly died, probably should not have been licensed by the Texas State Athletic Commission to begin with to compete in that fight. The word is he cut some 40 pounds to get down to the 265-pound weight limit. And to be honest with you, if somebody's having to do that to get in the cage to begin with, they probably should have never been sanctioned to fight. So, yeah, for sure, that co-main is a very regrettable moment for mixed martial arts and specifically the Bellator promotion.
At Richard Hunter, he's one half of Phone Booth Fight Podcast and a great guy to talk to whenever you need to know about the UFC. Thanks, Richard. Thanks for cleaning it all up for us, man.